This is Anchor Your Retirement with Barb Gulin from Safe Harbor Financial Planning Group. When a part of your financial strategy is out of tune, your long-term goals, your retirement savings, and your legacy can all suffer. With many years of experience in the financial industry, Barb Gulin provides her clients and prospects the information they need regarding Social Security, retirement income planning, wealth management, and much more. Listen in as we address your financial concerns and provide helpful strategies to put you on the path to achieving your retirement goals. And now here is Anchor Your Retirement with Barb Gulin.
Welcome to the Anchor Your Retirement podcast. I'm your host, Barbara Gulin, coming to you from snowy Kansas City. And with me is my co-host, Tony Shore, coming from not so snowy Minnesota. What's
That's
wrong
right.
with this picture? Yeah,
I don't know how this ended up happening, that I'm here in Minnesota. We have no snow on the ground, none whatsoever. I mean, some lawns are still green at this point. It's unbelievable. We've had no winter so far, although the cold air is here. I will tell you that. It's starting to get cold out.
Yeah, I mean, we're still not super cold. We've had a couple of super cold days, but not consistently. And this is like the first of two systems coming through in the next 7 days. So I'm really grateful that I picked an office close to my house so I don't have a long commute home.
That's nice. Yeah, that's a good thing, because you don't want to drive when you're getting 2-4 inches of snow and the roads are icy.
Yeah. But hey, this is our first conversation of the new year. How was your New Year's?
It's 2024. It was great. I spent part of New Year's weekend. We spent the whole family, all of us, and this is the first time this has happened in a while, where my wife and I and our 5 kids, 6 if you count my son's wife, 2 went. We all went down to Worthington to see my mom and dad, who aren't, doing the best. My mom is in a home and has Parkinson's, and my dad his health isn't great, but he's still living out on the farm. So we got to spend some time with them. And then we came back and we're home Sunday evening, and our 2 daughters and my wife and I watched the ball drop on TV and just hung out.
So did I, for the first time in forever. I was actually awake for the new year to come in.
Yeah, I was. My wife didn't make one of my daughters and myself, we made it to the ball drop, but my wife and my other daughter did not. They were in bed asleep by that time. So
can't say that I blame them. Yeah, it was just one of those where I actually had the energy to stay up this year. So
yeah. I'm always up late anyway. I can't get to bed before 11 o'clock at night, and usually it's midnight, even on a work night. So that
is not my body. I am in bed at 9. Yeah,
same with my wife's in bed by 9 every night. My parents usually by 8:30 now, or 8. But they get up early.
And that's farm life for you. Yeah. And yes, I'm usually up early, although I have been hitting the snooze bar this week, and I know you haven't felt 100%.
No, I'll tell you what, I've been trying to rest a lot this week because I had a bit of a cold. You can still hear a little bit of it, but other than the cold things, I thought 2023 ended on a good note with the markets, the economy, spending time with my family, and I'm looking forward to 2024.
I think it's going to be a fantastic year. And I wasn't going to say anything about your cold. We were just going to chalk that up to your Minnesota accent.
Yeah, right. Yeah, a little more nasal today during the show. So,
but let's talk about financial plans.
Okay.
And let's talk about retirement strategies today. Okay.
Yeah, some strategies. And I know that that's a big part of what you do, and people need to utilize strategies to really have success and avoid costly mistakes, don't they?
Well, yeah, and we're going to talk about diversifying out a little bit, because last year the market had double-digit returns, and everybody has short memories, guys. In 2022, the market had double-digit losses.
Right.
So,
Yeah, so 2023 ended up, and we need to look at 2024, and that's why you're calling the show Investment Strategies for a Stable Retirement. I love that show title you came up with.
Well, thank you. For us, I mean, you've known me long enough to know that when we're putting together plans for our clients, we look at it from a multifaceted approach. The nice part about us being fiduciaries is that I'm not restricted to just market-based or just insurance products. I get to look at everything. And thanks to the support that we get from our team at Gradient, it's like I tell all of my clients, you see 5 of us sitting here in the office. You don't see the other 300 in Topeka and in Minnesota that are also supporting us so that we can spend our time focusing on our clients. And I let them use their expertise to help guide me to what the best product is for whatever solution it is somebody's coming to me needing. Does that make sense?
No, that makes perfect sense. And I know that, when you talk about your back office, you work with FMOs and financial organizations like Gradient and Gradient Investments. The great thing is you can pick up the phone and talk to the president, if you wanted to, of Gradient Investments and their senior portfolio managers. And you have, and say, hey, I've got this client, and what's going on out there? What do you recommend? Or my client and I think we should make this move. And I just think that's fantastic that you can offer your clients that service. You're not going to get that personalized service with the big box chain.
No, and I often joke because I have the president of Grady Investments cell phone number plugged into mine.
Yeah.
And so I know when he's calling me on his cell phone that it probably means I'm in trouble a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know. So those can be good calls, but usually it's like, hey, what are you doing? Yeah. No, that's good.
Because, it just, I get very protective of things. And
sure. Yeah, I mean, he's called you. He's been on, they'll have him on CNBC or Fox Business News to talk about finances. So he's one of those talking heads they have as a guest to talk about where the markets are headed or what he thinks about particular funds. And then he gets off his appearance on Fox Business News or wherever he's at, and he's calling Barbara Gulin to say, Barb, what's up?
Or, I mean, I'm still small fish in the pond. I know that. But needless to say, their time is valuable, and it's a privilege that we have that kind of access. I
don't have it. I don't get calls from Mike Binger or the president of Gradient Investments on my cell. So I see him personally.
That's
usually,
what I mean.
Usually once a week I go talk to him. But no, I honestly don't. I don't call. He's a big fella. But it's important for our listeners to know that you're hooked into that, and whether it's you or another advisor. You want to work with an independent advisor who has access to these types of things. That's where the big box companies fail because they have their own products they're pushing. They have their own portfolios they're pushing, and they're not really always looking out for your best interests. And I think you need a more personalized approach, which you offer, which is something that can help people with their investment strategies for 2024.
Well, I mean, there are certain big box operations that if somebody says I have an account here, I'm like, oh, let me guess, you have funds at this mutual fund company. And they're like, how did you know?
Yeah.
I haven't shown you my statement yet.
It's a more cookie cutter approach. Yeah.
Yeah. And going to use the whole mutual fund comment to bridge over. We're going to talk about diversification a little bit, because that is one of the investment strategies that we frequently use to help our clients. I have lost count of the number of times I have somebody that comes in with their statements from a brokerage firm or something that they put together themselves. And they're like, I'm diversified. I'm in 5 different mutual funds. Okay. And then I utilize another one of the tools that we have at Gradient. I go to Case Central.
Yep.
And I send them the statements with the mutual funds that they're diversified into. And I ask them to run a Morningstar report and a stock overlap report. Okay.
Yeah,
Now,
the stock overlap is important. Why should people be concerned about having stock overlap? What do you mean by that?
well, I'm so glad you asked, Tony. It's because that same person who says, I'm diversified, I'm in 5 different mutual funds, when I show them the stock overlap report, they find out that 4 of the 5 funds are invested in Microsoft. 3 of the 5 are in Alphabet. 3 of the 5 are in Meta, or whatever Facebook is calling themselves this week. So that means and let's take this back another step. If you've got 4 mutual funds that all have a piece of Microsoft, are you really diversified?
Yeah, no, they're not as diversified as they think.
Right.
And even if they're diversified within a stock portfolio, they might not be diversified overall too. We know that. That's a different story. They might have everything at risk in the stock market, but that stock overlap is important because sometimes they can be contradicting their own investments.
Mm-hmm.
They could be buying here and buying that here, and this mutual fund selling, and it's just like,
right.
How does that help them?
And I also have clients that work for larger corporations whose names you would recognize. They're on the S&P 500. And the thing is with them, if they're participating in their company's 401k plan, frequently a good portion of their match is in company stock. So you are then facing another risk called single security risk.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody found out about that who worked for Enron back in the late 90s, 2000, 2001.
Yep.
Okay. Enron being one of the reasons that we have so much more paperwork that we get to fill out now as advisors.
Yep.
But
they had to write a whole new book of regulations and rules and compliance issues because of Enron, and some of them were well needed. I mean, that Enron was a fiasco, and there's been a couple other companies where, hey, the employees had all their stocks in that company, and then if something happens to the company, you've got all your eggs in one basket. You don't want that.
Or even more recently, the FTX fiasco with Mr. Bankman-Fried. Yeah. Anyway, we digress. The point of all of this is taking the time to work with a fiduciary, somebody who can help you with a diverse range of products. And I don't like to think of myself as selling products. I look at myself as somebody who creates a solution for somebody so that they can have as successful a retirement as possible. We're going to take into account their risk tolerance. We've talked about the color of money risk analysis on so many podcast episodes here, I've lost count. But we're going to put that link in these show notes so that if you haven't taken the time to take that yet and find out what your risk tolerance is, you can take the time to do that. It's 11 questions. It'll take you 5, maybe 10 minutes if you're an overthinker, okay? And give you that number somewhere between 1 and 100 that's going to tell you what your risk tolerance is for right now. Okay. I'm also going to go back and say, if you haven't taken a risk tolerance in 2 or 3 years, it wouldn't hurt to go back and retake that and reevaluate where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Because circumstances change.
Yeah, and everybody's risk tolerance, can be different. Different people have different risk tolerance. And then I know that you have people take this risk tolerance questionnaire. It's just like 11 questions they answer, and there's some questions you answer, and then you get your risk score, and then you look at where they're allocated currently and see if it matches what they're actually saying. And in a lot of cases, it doesn't, does it?
It doesn't. Very frequently we work with a lot of federal employees, and they'll come back with a risk tolerance of, like, let's say 60. Okay. And then I ask them where their TSP is allocated, and they're like, well, I never did anything to it. So I guess it's all in the G fund, which is government-backed securities, which is not something in line with somebody with a risk tolerance of 60.
Right.
At least not to have it all there.
Yeah.
Okay. It's incredibly conservative. And, when I show somebody the, G fund over the last 11 years, well, maybe is hovering around, last year came in just right around 4%, give or take a couple tenths. Okay. Sure. But, 7-8 years ago when interest rates were like nothing, it was paying 0.75% for the whole year. Whereas, so let's say I would guess over the last 10, 11 years, G Fund has probably averaged 2.5%. Okay.
Sure. Yep.
C Fund, on the other hand, over the last 11 years has probably averaged somewhere just right around 14%.
Wow.
Okay.
Big difference.
Especially when you take into account compounding.
Yes. Compounding interest. Yep.
Yes. Somebody who just has it in the G Fund is looking at having it take 25, 30 years to double. Somebody in the C Fund, at that rate of return, it's going to double in 5 to 6 years.
Wow.
So when you're looking at your nest egg, looking at your need, those things matter, and they matter a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. I mean, obviously, there are strategies you can utilize to help people with all of this. And that's what we're talking about today.
Right.
You utilize a lot of different strategies to help with this, don't you?
I do my best. I really do. Because on the flip side, while we're talking about those great returns of the C Fund, which for those of you who aren't federal employees, imitates the S&P 500 stock index, or attempts to do that. Okay.
Yep.
We don't want all of your money in that basket in case we end up having another 2022 or those back-to-back bad years, 2001, 2002. It's happened before. History repeats itself. And if we can avoid it, we don't want to pull money for your lifestyle out of an asset that's depleting or declining in value at that time because the market isn't performing well, which is why we look on the other side at insurance products, at some annuities, at cash value life insurance, at having all of those other strategies in place.
Principle for principal protection and safety is what you're looking at.
Right.
Money will be there when you need it.
Yep, we call that your no-so money.
Okay.
So we also call it green money. We go back and forth with a couple of different terms. But when somebody is going to be depending on that money to maintain their lifestyle, it's important for us to help them protect that as much as possible, give it as much growth as we can while still protecting it, and doing our best to keep pace with or stay ahead of inflation.
Yeah. And that's what we all want to do. I mean, we've seen inflation the price of goods always goes up. We know it's going to happen. We know it's going to happen. It's going to happen in 2024. You're not going to go to the grocery store and your bill is going to be $50 less than it normally is.
No,
it's not even going to be the same. It's going to be a little more. We know groceries creep up. We know the cost of cars, other things get more expensive. About the only item that inflation doesn't affect are televisions for some reason. It's like the only thing I've seen go down in price in my lifetime, in my 50 plus years, are TVs. Otherwise, everything goes up. The cost of healthcare, the cost of education, and nothing's coming down. So you need to have a strategy in place to deal with inflation. Obviously.
You do. And, I have a really good friend who ended up having to replace a car over the holidays. Wasn't in the budget, wasn't in the plan, but it all worked out. I mean, there's nothing like taking your car into the shop and finding out that it needs an engine rebuild and that the cost of the engine rebuild has you halfway to a new car.
Right. Yeah, that's not good. Then you need a new car.
Right. And the last time this person bought a car was 8 or 9 years ago. So there was some definite sticker shock going on there.
Yeah.
So
that's, there's a lot of sticker shock. Boy, if it's been a while, I'm driving a 2012 still. And it's funny you mentioned that. But Saturday it stopped working. like altogether while we were down visiting my parents. So it's still sitting there in the parking lot of my mom. They were supposed to tow it Tuesday. I got a picture before the show from my daughter who went down there to help take care of mom and dad. Well, I'm up here working, and she sent me a picture of my car still in the lot there, even though I had been told by roadside assistance that it had been towed. So, so I might be looking for a new car. But Barb, I'll talk to you about that loan I'm going to hit you up for after the show.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
No, I'm just kidding, but you never know, and you need to plan for these things. But yeah, talk about inflation. The car prices are outrageous.
Yes, they are. But this is why we're talking about investment strategies. You want to have some of that money set aside in the bank so that you can get to it if there's an emergency. You want to have some money invested in the market in line with your risk tolerance to help keep pace with or outpace inflation. And then you've got to have some money in that safe money bucket so that if the world gets turned on its head or we have another rough year like we had in 2022, you've got a safety net there and can weather the fluctuations in the market a little bit better than somebody who's 100% invested in the market.
Right. Yeah. And if you have those strategies in place, and I like talking about risk and diversity and strategies because these are things that typical person out there doesn't think about. And that's where you come in. You don't have to handle these things on your own. Work with a financial professional. And I know you're more than happy to sit down with, if our listener wants to sit down with you and look at their financial situation, that initial consultation, there's absolutely no charge and no obligation.
That's right. I mean, for us, it's an honor to sit and help people.
Yeah, I know you really enjoy it. So I encourage our listeners to do that. What's that phone number they can call you at?
The phone number they can reach us at is area code 913-553-6222. You can always go to the website anchoryourretirement.com.
All right. Well, I think that's fantastic. So is there anything else on this topic you wanted to touch on today?
I would encourage everybody, you don't self-medicate when you're sick. You get an opinion from the doctor, especially if it's something serious. Right. And planning for your retirement and making sure that you're set up properly is serious enough that you need to go see a financial doctor, a fiduciary.
Right. Yes. For sure. I think that's huge. Well, Barbara, great show today. One more time for our listeners, they can get a lot of great information. Check out the show page at safeharborfpg.com. That's safeharborfpg.com. Or to set up that complimentary consultation, give Barbara a call, 913-553-6222, right?
Yep, that's it, Tony. You've got it memorized now.
All right. Great show. Listeners, that does it for today's episode of Anchor Your Retirement.
We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to Anchor Your Retirement. Don't pay too much for taxes or retire without a sound retirement plan. For more information, please contact Barbara Gulin at Safe Harbor Financial Planning Group. Call 913-553-6222 or visit them online at anchoryourretirement.com.
Advisory services are offered through Safe Harbor Financial Planning Group, LLC, a registered investment advisor in the state of Kansas. All matters discussed during the show are for informational purposes only. Each individual situation may vary, and the opinions expressed here may not apply to everyone. Materials presented are believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations can be made as to its accuracy. All ideas and information should be discussed in detail with one of our qualified representatives prior to implementation. We are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration, the Federal Medicare Program, or any other government agency. Calling this number will direct you to a licensed sales agent.